Hi, I'm Brooke, a coach here at MeetRx, and I'm here today with Andrew, who's going to share with us what it's been like for him on the carnivore diet. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Brooke. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Well, let's just get started.
Sure.
So, what brought you to this way of eating?
Um, uh, Quest for health would probably be the best way to put it. Um, I started once I decided to get healthy, and we'll get to why I decided to get healthy in a little bit. But I once I decided to get healthy, I remember hearing stuff about sugar and carbs being bad for you, so I decided on my own to try to reduce the amount I was eating, but I was kind of flailing in the wind there a little bit, not really having a structure. And then I came upon Mark Sisson's work, The Primal Blueprint, and everything subsequent to that, and his Mark's Daily Apple website, which has been a great help and a great resource for me to give to other people who are kind of like dipping their toe a little bit. And then from there, I decided to try to do intuitive eating. So what worked best for me in terms of what on my plate was reacting with me in different ways, and it led me down to an unintentional whole foods ketogenic type of way of eating. But it was still a lot of heavy plants, some fat, the palm-sized portion of protein that everyone else has been hearing for the rest of their lives. And then I heard Sean Baker's interview on the Joe Rogan interview, which I'm sure a million other people have as well. And that's what really pushed this in the modern sphere of influence. But I thought it was nuts. I was like, he can't really look like that. Who thought that? And then it kind of just, but it stuck in the back of the head. And that was in January of 2018. And when March Meetness of, March Meetness of 2018 came around a couple months later, and I was still kind of feeling blah in a certain way. I was like, you know what? I'll give it a month. If I give it a month and I don't like it, I can stop. If it's 2 weeks and it's hell, I could stop. I'm not going to hold myself to arbitrary rules. And I gave it a month and I had never felt better. What I did was extremely strict, zero carb, beef, salt, water, seltzer. Like that's it. And so maybe some coffee too in the hard days. But that's what I tried for the month. And then after that, I added bacon and eggs and the chicken after that. But I also decided to stay with the no plant rule for 98% of my diet, really, because social events, certain days, treats for human beings, psychological health, not being too dogmatic is also important to me. But for that other 98% of the time, I'm primarily meat-based. So I've never felt better, and energy levels are pretty stable, and I feel well digestively and all the things that come along with it. Better sleep, fewer allergies.
That sounds good. What those first few days, so the first week or so, when you just started just eating meat, salt, and water, what was that like?
Real boring. Hard to figure out what I was going to bring to work for lunch. I had a different job at that point, and so I was traveling 2 hours each way into Manhattan to an office job where I had no window and a closet office. And it was kind of just like throwing my bowl of ground beef that I made the night before into the microwave and shoving that down my throat until I can get home. It wasn't a lot of fun. And if you know anything about Manhattan, getting any bit of food anywhere is extremely expensive. So the quantity of food that I began to eat, because I did begin to eat twice a day, multiple pounds of meat at a sitting, that was not going to be a sustainable, affordable thing for me to do to eat out. So I kind of just gritted my teeth, made everything in bulk, so I kept it in the refrigerator, brought it to work. In terms of energy levels, I was already fat-based, so I wasn't going from a standard American diet to the carnivore diet, so I didn't really get that many cravings. It was a challenge for me to cook for both my wife and me, although I did take on the cooking responsibilities because I didn't really want to burden her with making multiple pounds of meat at a time. It wasn't really fair to me. So I made my stuff. I shared what I was making in terms of the protein, and then I added whatever she wanted on top. I'm not going to force my household to eat the way I do. But it was it was really the social challenge, getting people off of the stigma of it. My mother thought I was going to die for a long time. but I recently got a echocardiogram, carotid artery echo, and a calcium score because I changed providers, and my new provider thought also that I'm at risk for a heart attack because of my LDL levels. And we all know the argument over the LDL levels and that whole long thing. If you look into David Feldman's work, if you look into any of the modern low carb work for LDL levels, it's not that much of a risk if there's no presence of sugar and low triglycerides, which I have both. And so my echo came back fine, my carotid came back fine, my calcium score is 14. I think the high threshold of normal is 500, so I'm okay.
That's a great, that sounds great. So what were your symptoms, or what was going on for you before you changed your diet?
Sure. So I kind of had a turning point in my life. It all happened at the same time. I was overweight, currently hovering between 220 and 225. My lowest was when I was doing whole foods keto at 207, but I wasn't really that energetic at that point. I was just kind of maintaining low energy. So I think I needed to eat a bit more to be more energetic throughout the day. But my highest was 275. And so I was a bigger guy. I'm 6'3", so I'm pretty big to begin with. And so a lot of people saw me lose weight, but they didn't really know how much because it kind of went all over. I didn't have a gut. I don't drink that much to begin with. So I don't have that swelling. I was just kind of big. But when I lost a lot of weight, I lost a lot of inches. And so it was really about me being overweight, unhappy with how I was feeling every day. I had poor bathroom events. I had very bad energy levels. I would kind of fall asleep in meetings in the afternoon. I would be hungry and ravenous all the time. And I didn't like that. It took me a while. I think I was around 26 when I figured out that wasn't really normal for people. And I grew up eating, I didn't grow up wanting for much, fortunately for me, but I also, I grew up eating a whole bunch and eating like an adult and having an adult palate. And I thought food is very important. And I so made that a part of my personality. And so I was the food guy in my friend group. I knew where the restaurants were. I knew what thing was on the menu that was good to eat. I could pair things together really well. And I thought that's why people liked me. And I thought that's why people talked to me. And it had nothing to do with that. That was all self-imposed. So I had to divorce myself from that. And it was a little bit of a journey, but then I had an issue where I had to get a surgery, and that surgery didn't heal right, and that led to a Crohn's diagnosis. And so then I figured out I had an autoimmune disease on top of all the issues from being overweight, or my constant bad diet plus being overweight triggered the autoimmune disease. I don't know which one it was, but either which way, I was then put on a therapy for it, and the therapy cleared up the issue that wasn't healing well with the surgery, but my intestinal inflammation, my digestion, and bowel movements, things like that really weren't shaping up from the therapy. It was just about the outward facing part of the disease. So I kind of just started to figure out how to eat from there. And so that's when I really got strict with the Primal Blueprint and transitioned into the whole foods keto, and I transitioned into carnivore. And I've been carnivore for a little over 2 years now.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
great news. How long were you keto first?
Probably about 1.5 years.
Ah, so
Yeah.
it's been a
But I don't want to say keto because I never took a ketone test. Being in a state of ketosis was never really a goal for me. I never wanted that 1.0 mole or whatever it is on the strip. It wasn't really, that's not what I was going for. I primarily wanted to be fat burning, and I wanted to be healthy.
You were fat adapted then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that makes it a little bit easier with the carnivore diet once you get fat adapted.
Absolutely. And even on the carnivore diet, it was pretty interesting to see how different meats react differently within you. Like a white meat chicken breast with a little bit of butter and some spices really will make me ravenous. But a hamburger with an egg on top, no problem. Bacon, no problem. Fish, if it's a meatier, fattier fish, it's better than if it's a white flaky fish. So the protein to fat ratio on the meats itself, where the meat has come from, what the meat ate, all makes a big difference in how it reacts to the body as well.
Yeah, it's funny about chicken. It just makes me hungry.
It really does. I'm known. I actually recently won a wing eating contest at work because it was who could eat the most wings in the shortest amount of time.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So things improved pretty quickly with weight, it sounds like.
Yeah, so I lost a whole bunch of weight just from going low carb. That's a really good tool to lose weight if that's what your goal is. But beyond that, it makes you more healthy than the standard American diet. I think there's a spectrum. I think with carnivore, it is the most optimal for the most people, but it's also something that may be a little bit too psychologically extreme for a lot of people to jump right into. So I think a transition can be helpful for some. But I'm sorry, I just lost complete track of the question.
Well, let me just ask. So you were diagnosed with Crohn's disease,
Yeah.
and so with the plants and a keto diet, was that still irritating for you, or how did that?
I was healthier by far by then doing that, but I was still gassy and bloated.
Mhm.
And sometimes I got cramps and pains. It wasn't completely gone. And I do not get gassy and bloated unless I decide to add a spice that doesn't agree with me, or I'm cooking something for my wife that includes like sauteed onions, and I'll have it once in a while, and then that will cause me to get gas and bloating and pain. But other than that, yeah, if I can't eat anything that's like a raw vegetable or anything like that, that will cause me a lot of pain.
And do you eat dairy now?
Goat dairy, casein doesn't agree with me. Otherwise, I would. I love cheese; it's delicious, but it doesn't react well to my body, so I try not to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it if the body tolerates it, though.
So it sounds like it's working pretty well for you. I'm wondering, do you fast? Do you do intermittent fasting at all?
I do. In the beginning, it was intentional. I kept to a very strict time limit. I stopped eating at 8 and I began eating at 12, and that was it. And this is just a little bit too strict for me now. I've found that level of strictness is not good for my mental health. So I don't eat breakfast, but maybe I'll make lunch at 11:30. Maybe I'll have a little bit of a late dinner because that's what works with my schedule. I'm not going to keep myself to arbitrary times because what's the point? If I'm fat burning with what I'm eating, then that's okay.
What are some of the other positive things that you just, besides the obvious, Crohn's and weight loss and generally feeling better, but anything else that you were surprised about?
Yeah, I think a lot of the aches and pains I was feeling went away that I didn't know were just minor inflammatory pieces, or I was not eating enough protein that was bioavailable in the body to repair old damage, because I'm a martial artist. And so from my martial arts history, I have a lot of old injuries, and those old injuries, you just think, okay, this will hurt forever now, whatever, I'll get by. And sometimes things don't have to hurt forever. You'll be okay, and you can recover faster from things. And I just turned 31 in January, so I'm still got a long ways to go, and I was already feeling like an old man with low back pain and knee pain and stuff like that. And so I was like, all right, this is life now. It happens. I'll move on. I'll just grit my teeth and bear it. But it actually helped a lot. And one of the things I got into when I was doing this is the mind shift doesn't just go to, all right, meat. It goes to healthfulness. What can I do to be healthy? And I personally don't like to lift heavy a lot. I know that's big in the community. I like to do mobility work. I like to work on having my body move the most natural way it can based on the human body's range of motion. And so that's something I found in my small tissue, working the hip flexors, working the different joints, the tendons, the ligaments, actually recover faster from those exercises. Where I would have been sore for 2-3 days, I'm sore for a day. And I can continue to work on it.
Yeah, recovery is huge, I think, with
Yeah.
this inflammatory diet. Yeah, I love that too. So you're a martial artist, and you've found some kind of improvement with recovery, so you could probably push yourself a little bit further, or grow in your craft, your art there, I guess.
Oh yeah. And during seminars where we do 6 to 8 hour days with one break in the middle, be able to just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. As long as you bring some salt with you and keep your electrolytes up, you're able to keep pushing through it because you have the energy base for it. You don't need to keep eating.
That's great. So what are you eating in a typical day now?
While I'm home these days, it's a lot more bacon and eggs because there's a lot of limitations on what you can get. Fortunately for me, there's a restaurant delivery service that started to deliver to homes once restaurants kind of shut down around the area. So I was able to get a lot of ground beef to throw in the freezer. I was able to get a lot of bacon to throw in the freezer. I'm able to get bulk egg orders and get a whole lot of eggs in my refrigerator. So I typically eat a lot of ground beef, canned sardines, and olive oil is really, and it's olive oil, but it's not that bad. So it's canned sardines. I'll drain the oil out of it, eat the sardines. Eggs and bacon a lot. I recently got a meat smoker, so I've been smoking ribs and smoking pork butt and smoking a lot of good stuff on there. But is mostly ground beef because the quantity of food, I typically eat 1.5 to 2 pounds of beef in a sitting, plus an egg to 4, depending on how hungry I am. I recently started to drain the fat more because if I'm adding eggs to my meals, that's got the fat in it, and I don't need the fat from the meat plus the fat from it becomes, I know there's the calorie in, calorie out. It's kind of bunk when you're in a standard American diet, but when you're kind of eating the quantities we eat, I don't think I need the extra calories and that much fat.
So you've noticed that you've tweaked it or changed it over time about how much fat to protein ratio for your own?
I think it also depends on my activity level or how I'm feeling that day. If I feel sated, I still need the protein. I don't need the fat, but if I'm ravenous, I'll eat the fat and that'll sate me. So like I said before, intuitive eating I think is important because if you just stick to these are my macros and this is what I eat every single day, no matter what, it kind of takes the external forces, the internal stressors, the everyday life of the chaos that goes on inside and outside your body out of the equation, and that's important.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. Yeah, I think that changing up, you're mixing it up and changing up the fat ratio is just a natural thing if you let your body decide what it needs.
Yeah. And then I also, sorry, to answer your question fully, I also don't snack. So I just eat those two things. I typically do not snack. If I do snack, Duke's Shorties is a good sausage, dried sausage that you can get, or beef jerky from People's Choice. That's just beef salt and dried out. That's it. That's a good one. But I don't do it a lot. One, snacking is a lot of money, and two, it kind of ruins the second meal.
Yeah. So you pretty much eat 2 meals a day, it sounds like.
Yeah. 2 meals a day, coffee in the morning. That's a little thing that I'll have. That's a plant, but I don't care. I've given up a lot in my life. Coffee isn't necessary.
Yeah. So you're hanging on with coffee. Yeah. A lot of people love coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it's working out really well for you. You're a family man, you said, and
I am
earlier. So I'm curious, is the whole is your partner carnivore?
No, she's not. She'll eat whatever she feels, but she also doesn't disparage it and doesn't really put me down for it. I've been very honest with her with how I've gone about this whole thing, with where I've been, because she was with me when I was a bigger guy. She was with me before I started the health journey. And so she's kind of watched the whole thing unfurl, and she's been very supportive. But like I said, I'm not forcing her to eat that way. It's not good for her, especially now because she's nursing. Changing your diet while nursing is not that great of a thing. Even though I started this way before, it's not. She's healthy otherwise. She doesn't have underlying issues. She's not against eating meat. She's not against eating plants. She knows that low carb is the better way to go. So everything else is on her for that. And my brother actually is more on board than anybody else in my family, because my brother also had a weight issue that he solved on his own. And so when I started this whole thing and I sent him the books and all the blogs and websites I was reading, that he got on board for the low carb as well. He never did full carnivore, but he's on for the low carb, whole food way of eating. Although his wife bakes a lot, so every now and then he'll indulge.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother and my father, it took years, but I got them to not eat pasta or rice with every meal. I got them to not have bread just available in the house just to eat. Those types of things have been big. They still have potatoes, they still have grains as they go out, they still have those things, but it's in so much less quantity. It's much better for them. They've lost weight, they feel better. So I'm happy for that. They don't do anything close to low carb, but they also don't eat tons of junk anymore.
Yeah, those little changes are huge, I think, for people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for you. It sounds like it's working well for you and you're continuing on with it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I have I want to know, what would you tell someone, who wanted to embark on this diet or was considering it? Do you have any tips for them?
I would have two main ones, and this is really for anybody looking to make any change, not just particular with carnivore. It's give it a month, give it enough time to make an effect, especially if you're coming from some place that wasn't even close to where it was to begin with, because the body needs to adjust. If you go for a week and it doesn't quite work and you're not hitting your metrics of whatever you want metrics that they want to be in a week, and it's not, must be garbage and thrown out the window, that's not enough time. So give it any change that you want to make a month. Make it a change in habit, a change in food, a change in sleep cycle, a change in whatever. Give it a month. If it doesn't work, then change, but give it at least some time. The other thing would be love and forgive yourself, because you're a human being. You're gonna fall off the wagon. Everybody falls off the wagon because we're a human being. And so what does that typically lead to? And this is Rob Wolf's thing, which is, yeah, you may have an unhealthy meal. That doesn't mean you have to then have another unhealthy meal and another unhealthy meal and another unhealthy meal. Or, yeah, you didn't stick to your plan that one time. That doesn't mean you have to binge. You can just jump right back. It's that easy. And don't get down the whole self-shame spiral of, oh, I'm such a piece of garbage. How could I do that? Oh my God, such a terrible thing. I'm obviously an awful human being and I don't deserve to be kind to myself. That's really not a helpful way to make your life positive. So to make a positive change, go, okay, I did that. It happened. I enjoyed it for the moment, back on track. That simple. It's hard. It's that simple, but it's hard.
No, that's great advice. That's really good advice. Give it time and then give yourself some kindness about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, thank you. I love your success story. It
I
sounds
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
like it's just moving right towards this great future with your young family.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, spending the time with us and sharing with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So, Carney on.
Yeah, exactly. Carney on.
Okay, take care.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.